Okay, start. Namo tassa, 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so this afternoon's talk is meditation. What is it? Why and how do we do it? First thing we want to look at is meditation Buddhist? And the simple answer to that is no. It's not. Meditation was around a long time before the Buddha, and I'm quite sure when this particular Buddha dispensation is over, there will still be meditation around. But there is a thing called Buddhist meditation, and it varies from the other meditations that are out there. We know when the Buddha first left the palace to become a renunciate, he practiced meditation under a couple of very good teachers, some of the best teachers in the area at the time of the Buddha. So while he was still, as what the Buddha would refer to as an unenlightened bodhisattva, he practiced meditation under these teachers. But he didn't attain enlightenment underneath these teachers. Now these teachers of the Buddha were actually reaching some fairly high states of meditation. They were good meditation masters. But what they didn't have was the Dhamma. And Buddhist meditation needs the Dhamma to go with it if we are going to hope to attain enlightenment. And we see today there are lots of different types of meditation available on the market. And I do mean on the market because they're being sold out there, you know. The United States Army is using mindfulness meditation to train its snipers to kill people. Not quite what the Buddha had in mind. So I don't think we could call this a form of mindfulness meditation, Buddhist meditation. Some of these multinational corporations are teaching their executives in that mindfulness meditation so that they can make more money, work out ways of getting more money off of you poor people and into the company's coffers. So this isn't what meditation is all about. So, let's say the Buddha, before he became enlightened, he practiced, we all know, for 6 years, all sorts of austerities, all sorts of weird and wonderful methods of trying to practice meditation. But he basically wasn't getting anywhere. And so we know eventually he left his teachers, went off on his own, continued to do a few bits and bobs of strange things, trying not to breathe, trying to breathe through his ears, all sorts of weird and wonderful things that the Buddha was doing. And these were forms of meditation that were actually quite popular in the day. These were forms of meditation that hurt. And of course, in India, a lot of the holy men believe that the way to Nibbana was through hurting yourself, So the Buddha practiced all of these things. We know that he became extremely skinny. They say that you could place your hand on his stomach and feel his backbone. All of these weird things that the Buddha did to try and attain enlightenment while he was still a bodhisattva. But then we know that eventually he made his way to the tree. He sat down and he started to practice meditation. He remembered when he was a young fellow, when he was at the ploughing competition, and he'd sat underneath the tree at the ploughing competition, and he remembered the meditation that he did underneath the tree. And so he decided that he would have a go at this particular type of meditation once again. And so he sat down underneath the Bodhi tree and he practiced Anapanasati. And we all know what happened on that particular night. By the morning, the Bodhisattva was now the fully enlightened one, the self-awakened one. And so we can see that the meditation that he did was quite important. But we also know that, the Buddha rediscovered the Dharma. He didn't discover the Dharma. The Dharma is always there. It just gets lost by people. We forget what the true Dharma really is. And it was now time for the Bodhisattva to rediscover the Dharma. And it was after he started to see the Dharma and he started to investigate the Dharma that he became enlightened. And so we can see it's important to have the Dharma along with our meditation practice. I'm quite surprised sometimes when you can go into Buddhist temples that are doing meditation courses and they don't teach the Dharma. So any old lay person can walk in off the street. And these often people, they don't know anything about Buddhism, but they want to do meditation. So they walk in off the street and they're sat down and they're told, be mindful. They've got no idea what that means. But they're told that they have to be it. And sometimes when you ask the teacher, will there be any Dharma talks? The teacher, who's quite often a monk, says, no, we don't do Dharma talks. Dharma is a hindrance to the practice. That's a weird thing coming from a monk, huh? Dharma is a hindrance to the practice. And so they don't teach the Dharma. But if we don't know the Dharma, then we don't know why it is that we're meditating. Often, I ask people, why do you want to learn to meditate? And they say, I want to be happy. I want to be peaceful. But they don't know how to be happy. They don't know how to be peaceful. Because their idea of happiness is a worldly concept of happiness. It's not a Buddhist concept of what happiness is. And so they think that they can sit down, somehow calm their minds, and get this happiness that they're seeking. And then they get very frustrated when it doesn't happen, you know. But it doesn't happen because, you know, it's, oh, you ladies, you got these sila sashes on, you know. These guys don't have any sila. You know, they think that they can come from a 2-week beer binge in the bar and then come and sit down and meditate because they don't keep the precepts. And then they sit down to try and meditate and their minds just bombard them with everything that they're doing wrong in life. You know, they've got no chance whatsoever to actually meditate. They might be able to fool themselves into thinking that they're meditating, but they're not. You know, you see them sitting there, you know. This can calm the mind down because what we're doing is we're hypnotizing ourselves. This constant, repetitive sound is a form of hypnosis. And this form of hypnosis will make you feel quite calm. It can make you feel quite tranquil. But when you get up from your meditation cushion, from your meditation chair, all those defilements come rushing straight back in again because we don't have sila. We don't understand the importance of morality in our meditation practice. And as I say, they come in and they say, I want happiness, I want peace. Well, meditation is not about getting anything. If you sit down to meditate with an expectation of getting something, you're going to disappoint yourself. Meditation is about letting go, not getting. If you want happiness, then you need to let go of anger. You know? We need to let go of greed, anger, and delusion. And delusion is the I. I want. So we have this concept of this I that apparently is entitled to this thing called happiness. We need to get rid of the concept of the I. And how are you going to get rid of the concept of I if you don't understand Buddhism? Where Buddhism tells us there is no permanent self, there is no permanent I. There's 5 aggregates, but there's no permanent I. So we have to get rid of the concept of I, because the concept of I is delusional. You know? And this concept of I want, that's grasping, that's clinging, that's craving. And we have to get rid of craving. So we have to get rid of the craving, we have to get rid of the ego. I've often said, and I'm quite sure some of you people have done this, it can't just be me. But you know, you put down your car keys in the night time or whenever, and then sometime later you need to jump in the car to go somewhere, and you can't find the keys. You go outside and you look in the car, no, they're not in the ignition. They're not sticking in the door still. Done that a few times, they left the car keys in the door, no worries. They must be somewhere. We know they must be in the house because the car's in the driveway. So we obviously had keys to get it there. And we're searching everywhere. And then you go to the coffee table and you pick up your Vogue magazine and your Cosmopolitan magazine and your newspaper and everything. You start chucking all these things off the table and there's the keys. They're sitting on the table right where you put them. They didn't move, they didn't go anywhere. You just covered them up with rubbish, with clutter. And this peace that people are seeking, we actually have it. We have an inherently calm, tranquil mind. But over lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we've chucked so much garbage in our minds that we can't see this peaceful mind. You know? So what we have to do is we have to start shoveling all the garbage back out again. We've got to get rid of it. And this takes time. You know, you get these people, they come and they decide they're going to do a 10-day meditation course, 10 days intensive meditation, and they have a plan. Day 1, first jhana. Day 2, second jhana. You know, by the end of the 10 days, these people are all going to be arahats. Doesn't work like that, you know, because our minds are very, very busy. When I was living in the forest in Thailand, there was a troop of monkeys who used to hang out very close to my kuti, with these cashew trees growing nearby. He used to, first thing in the morning and last thing at night especially, there was a troop of monkeys that turn up, and they would jump from one branch to another branch, and they'd grab a piece of cashew and they'd chew on it, and they'd chuck that piece away, and they'd run over here and they'd grab another piece of cashew and munch on that and chuck it away. And they were all over the place, you know. And they were also watching out for other monkeys, just in case some other monkey came to steal this piece of fruit, you know. And I used to love watching those monkeys because it was so reminiscent of what our minds are like. They jump from here to there, they take delight in this for a moment, and they get tired of that, and then they decide they'll jump over here somewhere and they'll have another go at this one, and our minds are all over the place. And so then we turn around and go, I'm going to learn how to meditate. And we do. We think we're going to sit down and have a calm, tranquil mind. Not going to happen. You know, our minds don't work like that. The minute you sit down to meditate, your mind is going to come up with 101 reasons why you shouldn't meditate. And this is why, you know, we were talking before about keeping the precepts. We were talking about food and cutting down on how much food that we ate. When you stop eating at midday, and you're used to not eating at midday, because that takes a few days, you know, for the stomach to shrink up a bit, you no longer start to worry about that extra meal. That's one thing less for the mind to play around with. Because otherwise, you know, you sit down, get yourself comfortable, get into the nice position, and then the mind goes, cup of coffee would be good right now. Maybe a sandwich, you know. Our minds can find so many excuses for us not to sit there, you know, because the mind doesn't want to be tamed. It's like a little child that's been outside playing all day. And then mum or dad calls the kid in and says, come on, time to sit down and be quiet now. The kid doesn't want to sit down and be quiet. It's like, I was born to play. And our minds are exactly the same. They played for so long, not just in this lifetime, but many lifetimes. And now all of a sudden we're telling the mind to sit down and shut up. Well, it's not going to agree to that in a hurry, you know. And so we have to practice at getting the mind to calm down. You know, it will not just automatically do it. And it'll throw up all sorts of weird and wonderful scenarios to get us out of it. It can even trick us into thinking we're meditating. You know, that's how smart our mind is. It can fool us into thinking we are actually meditating. And we see this when, you know, often people have you get these tapes, meditation tapes. And there's somebody with a very soothing voice. So picture yourself in a beautiful meadow with lovely flowers and chirping birds. I couldn't make one of those tapes, that'd be useless. But there's always a stream running through it, and you can hear the sound of the stream. It's like, just imagine you putting your feet into the stream, feel the coolers, and you listen to this tape, and you can actually be quite convinced that you're meditating. You're being very, very calm. But you're not. You're not meditating at all. You're hypnotizing yourself. You're going to sleep, by listening to this. The voice that they use when they do these things is a very soothing voice, and it starts to put us into a state of sleep. And our mind tells us that we're meditating, when in actual fact we're not. We're just having a nice, pleasant time for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long your DVD's for. But it's not meditation. We're not getting rid of any of the defilements. We're not teaching our mind to stay in one place. We see a guided meditation. In guided meditation, the teacher is telling you what to see, and you see it. That's hypnotism. It's not meditation. It's pure hypnotism. So we need to be careful about what it is that we call meditation. As I say, it has some benefits. It can help calm a person down. When I was a bit of an angry young man, and I could feel myself getting really annoyed, or if I'd blown up, I often used to go and listen to John Lennon albums, LPs. For those of you who are young, an LP was a big round thing that you played music on instead of on these little things. So I used to go and put on one of my LPs, and I would sit there with my headphones on and I'd listen to John Lennon. And a lot of John Lennon's music was very soothing music, and it was able to calm me down. But what it wasn't doing was it wasn't getting rid of the anger that I had inside me, or the cause of the anger that I had inside me. And it wasn't until I actually started to practice Buddhist meditation that any real change occurred in my own life. So I was used to that, sitting down and chanting some sort of a mantra or something like that. But then, as I say, as soon as you get up off of the cushion, everything just comes back in again. Your eyes are open, you start to see things, you're hearing things, smelling things, tasting things, touching things. And so all of these things naturally come back. And so that's because we're not learning to get rid of anything. Like I say, greed, anger, delusion, all of these things are the things that we need to get rid of. But this all takes time. None of this happens overnight, well, not for most of us, I know there are instances in the suttas where people could hear one teaching from the Buddha and attain enlightenment, but some of us might be lucky enough it might happen like that one day. You'll sit down to meditate and suddenly you'll get enlightenment. But for most of us, we have to practice and practice and practice and keep bringing our minds back. And so we need to know that the reason we meditate is to get rid of things, is to get rid of these fetters, these things that keep us on the cycle of samsara. This is where we start to practice true meditation, meditation taught by the Buddha. So, as I said, it would appear that the favourite meditation of the Buddhas, if you read the suttas, is anapanasati. mindfulness of the breath, or awareness of the breath, if you like. Now, the Buddha actually taught about 40 different types of meditation. The very first meditation that he taught after his enlightenment was the meditation on death. Always a nice one for us to ponder. I will die. I am subject to sickness, aging, and death. But I mean, this meditation is actually a good meditation. He taught to meditate on kasinas, so you take a coloured disc and you stare at the coloured disc for some time, and then you close your eyes and you try to keep the image of that solid disc in your mind for as long as you possibly can. There was meditation on the foulness of the body. This is a meditation that's very good for ridding ourselves of lust, is when we do meditation on the foulness of the body. But so many times the Buddha taught anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath. We have the four basic postures: sitting, standing, walking, and laying down. And they all have their place. I was saying this morning about after we eat, it's always good to do some walking meditation, because otherwise if we sit down we tend to get a bit sleepy on a full stomach. In a country here like Malaysia, it's a bit warm and very easy to suddenly fall asleep after you've eaten something. Walking meditation aids digestion, so it's good for you. Laying down meditation. Laying down meditation is something that I usually recommend people only practice at night time when they're getting ready to go to bed. Because you lay down and then you meditate yourself to sleep. And that's a good way to go to sleep. Meditating yourself to sleep is a very good way to go to sleep. Standing meditation. I don't know. Anybody used to standing at the traffic lights waiting for the little green man? You can just be aware of standing. You have to stand on the bus because it's too crowded when you're going to work. You can do standing meditation. But the most common form of meditation is sitting meditation. We all do it. You see it happening all over the place. People sitting down, meditating. So, how do we go about our meditation practice? Some people would say that you need to sit in the full lotus position. I don't say this. I know in the sutras, it says sit cross-legged. And some purists would say, well, it says in the sutras that you have to sit in the full lotus position. My argument with them would be, well, what about a one-legged person? Are you trying to tell me a person with one leg is not allowed to meditate? Because a one-legged person cannot sit in the full lotus position. Not possible. You need two legs to do that. The full lotus position has its advantages in that it gives you a very stable base upon which you are sitting. So it prevents you from rocking too much, either to the side or backwards or forwards. It's quite a stable base. And if you can do it, all well and good. Some people sit in the half lotus position. There's many ways of sitting on the floor. But then we get elderly people, maybe people with arthritis, rheumatism, who can't sit on the floor, so they can sit in a chair. There's nothing wrong with sitting in a chair, as long as you're not leaning backwards, because if you sit in your chair and you're leaning backwards, that's conducive to falling asleep. So we have to be careful of that one. So we try and put our feet on the floor, or foot if you've only got one leg. Get our hands in a comfortable position, and we relax our body. That's the first thing we have to do, is relax our body. Relaxing our body, relaxing our mind, so we get ourselves into a comfortable position. And then expecting nothing. So this is the important thing, expecting nothing. If you expect nothing, you can't disappoint yourself. If you get nothing, you won't be disappointed because you didn't expect anything. If you get something, you'll be very happy because you got something. So we sit down expecting absolutely nothing out of our practice. And then all we have to do is be aware of the breath. Now, breath meditation is wonderful because you don't need to carry a DVD player around with you, because your breath is with you. You can't forget your breath. You can't leave it at home when you're rushing out the door to go to work. You've always got it with you, That's the beauty about breath meditation. We always breathe. We always have our breath with us. And so we sit down, we've got ourselves nice and relaxed, and all we're being is aware of the breath. We're aware that we're breathing in, and we're aware that we're breathing out. Now, some people say we should be concentrating on the tip of our nose, the roof of the mouth. There's nothing in the sutras that says we should be concentrating on the tip of our nose or the roof of our mouth. The Buddha does not mention this. This would actually not be mindfulness of the breath, this would be mindfulness of the tip of your nose. You would be mindful of a sensation on the tip of your nose, not of the breath. And for a lot of people, actually, to find the sensation of the tip of their nose is a very, very difficult thing to do. So you're just frustrating people in their meditation practice. And they're going to get frustrated enough without us adding things to it, not necessary. And so we just sit down and we're aware. We're aware of breathing in, and we're aware of breathing out. We're aware of the beginning of the breath. We're aware of the duration of the breath. We're aware of the ending of the breath. And then we're aware of the beginning of the out-breath. We're aware of the duration of the out-breath. And we're aware of the cessation, of the ending of the out-breath. And that's all we need to be aware of, is the breath. Which sounds easy, huh? But your mind is going to wander. Your mind is going to wander. It's amazing how difficult it is to stay with the breath. You think one easy, simple task, can't be that difficult. Oh yeah, it can. It can be really difficult. And the funny thing is, sometimes it takes us half our meditation session to realise that we're not staying on the breath. We suddenly realise that we've been thinking about something completely different than the breath for the last 20 or 30 minutes. But if this happens, or when it happens, then all we do is we come back to the breath. We don't get angry. Remember, one of the things we're trying to do is get rid of anger. So don't let your meditation get you angry. It defeats the whole purpose, So when we realise that the mind has wandered from the breath, we just bring it back. We bring it back gently. We bring it back lovingly. We don't bring it back with anger. It just defeats the purpose completely. And once we brought it back, We're trying to see how long we can stay with the breath again. Maybe for 2 or 3 seconds. And then it goes again. You bring it back again. Takes off again. You bring it back again. You know? And when we start our meditation practice, you know, I remember doing a course some years ago, and it was like, you know, you went in the morning and you registered and you got given your room and everything else. And then in the afternoon, we went into noble silence. We weren't allowed to talk to each other. We weren't even allowed to look at each other. We had to walk with our eyes down. When we ate, we weren't allowed to look at the people across the table from us. We had to eat with our eyes down. I shared a room. I remember it was really weird because there's 2 of us sharing a room, and it's like, I want to sleep, but the light's on. Now I can't ask this person if it's okay to turn the light off. So I'm just going to go and turn it off and hope you won't mind, you know. So we went into this noble silence, got taken into the meditation hall, got told to sit in the full lotus position and not move for 1 hour. Said if you feel pain, meditate upon the pain. It didn't work. You know, you're just causing agony in people. You know, when you sit in the full lotus position and your legs start to hurt, your legs start to hurt. And when they say, well, take your mind to the pain because that's where it's gone, the pain just seems to get worse and worse and worse. And you want to move. You know? And they're saying, don't move, sit through it. Sit for the entire hour without changing position. You know? It's no wonder they had so many people would drop out of that course. You know? People couldn't deal with doing that sort of thing. So when we start our practice off, don't go starting off with an hour or 2 hours or whatever. Fix a sensible time. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Because you're going to find it's difficult enough to keep your mind under control for that length of time. Never mind trying to do it for 1 hour. If you are sitting on the floor in any cross-legged position and it starts to hurt, yeah, okay, you can observe the pain for a bit. But don't sit through the entire session in agony. Change position. We just change position mindfully, you know. Because the mind has gone to the pain. It's left the breath. And all the time that pain, the physical pain is there, you're going to have emotional pain, you know. Because we haven't learned to get rid of this yet. And so the mind's gone to this pain. So we can observe momentarily that there is pain. We can observe what sort of pain. Is it a sharp pain? Is it a dull pain? You know? Is it a constant pain? Does it come and go? But then change position, for goodness sake. Change position, but do it slowly. Be aware of changing your position. And then once you've changed the position that you're sitting in, you'll see that the pain begins to subside. This is teaching us about cause and effect. You know, there was pain. When I changed position, the pain went away. So the changing of the position was the cause of the cessation of the pain. The original position we were in was the cause of the pain arising. The changing of the position was the cause of the cessation of the pain. So we can make this observation, and then we go back to the breath, just observing breath, breathing in and observing breathing out. At the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha says, a monk knows breathing in long I breathe in long. A monk knows breathing out long, I breathe out long. A monk knows breathing in short, I breathe in short. A monk knows breathing out short, I breathe out short. Now some places say we should do some short breaths and some long breaths. That's not what the sutta says. The sutta doesn't tell us to control our breathing. The sutta says to be aware of our breathing. Is it a long breath? Is it a short breath? It doesn't tell us to do some short and some long. You get people who tell you to count the breaths up to 10. So breathe in 1, breathe out 1, breathe in 2, breathe out 2, breathe in 3. But actually it's not being mindful of the breath, it's being mindful of counting. You're being mindful of a number. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. And that can put you into a hypnotic state. It's the same with chanting. I was talking to one young lady a while ago, and she was a bit confused because she had some teachers telling her, chant, don't meditate. Some people telling her, meditate, don't listen to the Dhamma. Don't listen to the Dhamma, but don't chant and don't meditate. And I mean, that's ego. That's an ego-driven teacher who's telling you these things. Chanting actually has a very beneficial effect upon us. Chanting helps calm the mind down because the chanting gets a little rhythmic. We can start getting a little rhythm going in the chanting. And you see it like with the Tibetans, they've got the Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. You keep that up and you're going to get feeling quite tranquil. We do the same. We can do Namo Tassa. We just constantly repeat Namo Tassa. Some people say Buddha, Buddha, I say on the in-breath, say Bud, on the out-breath, say Do. But in actual fact, you see, you're still not meditating on the breath, you're now meditating on Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. But if you wanted to use this at the start of your meditation session, there's absolutely no harm in it. I know it doesn't mention it in the suttas, but there's no harm to start your session off. But don't do an entire session of Buddha, 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 because all you're going to do is start to hypnotize yourself. So we do Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. When we find the mind's able to stay with the Buddha, then we switch and we start to watch the breath. Awareness of the breath. This is Anapanasati. Awareness of the breath. So as I say, we can do some chanting. Chanting's fine. We can chant at the beginning. Some people like to start their meditation sessions off with metta. Another nice way, especially if you've had an argument with somebody during the day, that you can send metta and you're not going to feel quite so bad when you sit down to meditate. The thought of the argument won't come up because you've already forgiven them. And more importantly, you've forgiven yourself. This is something we need to remember when we do metta meditation. Forgive yourselves first, always. We're our own worst critics. People don't judge us half as harshly as we tend to judge ourselves at times. We need to learn to forgive ourselves. So if you want to start your meditation session with metta, spend some time forgiving yourself for your faults. Because you're worth it. You're allowed to forgive yourself. There's nothing egotistical about it. You're allowed to do it, because we all make mistakes. We are only human after all. And so we forgive ourselves, and then we start to send love out to others. And usually we start with family members, close family members, all that sort of thing. But it's the enemies, those people that we don't like. That's the hardest one. It's easy to be compassionate to those that we love. Not so easy to be compassionate to those that we don't like. But when we can start feeling compassion for those that we don't like, then our minds will start to settle down. And it will become easier and easier for us to practice meditation. But as I say, when we first start, you might decide to do a 10-minute meditation session in the morning when you wake up. And you might find that for about 10 seconds out of that 10 minutes, you're able to keep your mind on the breath. That's okay. Give yourself a pat on the shoulder. At least you got a few seconds. But then be very careful, because the next time you sit down to meditate, don't sit down expecting to get 10 seconds, because you might not get it. And then you'll disappoint yourself and you go, I'm rubbish at this and I just want to give up. Don't give up. There's no such thing as a bad meditation session. The only bad meditation session you'll ever have is the one that you skip. The one you decide not to do, that's a bad meditation session, you know. So even if for 10 minutes, you just end up deciding that I'm not going to get up for 10 minutes. Give yourself a pat on the shoulder. You've done well. So many people would give up, stand up, walk away. But if you can persevere, just with staying there, just trying, and you get through that 10 minutes with no mindfulness whatsoever, the mere fact that you persevered with it is a good thing. Because if you give up, you'll find that you don't want to go back to your meditation cushion later on that day or the next morning when you get up or whatever. You know? So we sit through it and we go back and we try again the next day. And when we keep this routine up, you will find that slowly but surely your mind will be able to stay for longer periods on the breath. And when it does wander, you'll catch it more quickly. You become aware much more quickly that the mind's decided to go for a walk over here, you know. And so you'll bring it back a lot quicker. And then we can start to extend the meditation periods that we're having. Take it up to 15, take it up to 20, you know. And then of course when we start getting into the longer meditation periods, that's when we really start using things like walking meditation. Because sometimes we decide we're going to sit for an hour, and after 20 minutes we think, I'm starting to nod off a little bit, you know. So we can get up and do some walking meditation. You know? So we can walk for 10, 15 minutes. And then we can sit down and see the rest of our meditation period out, just watching the breath again. You know, there's a lot more to anapanasati than just watching the breath. But this is the beginning of the practice. You know, if you get too many details, you start thinking that you're doing it. You know, your mind tricks you into thinking that you know, this is the trouble. There's so many books now on meditation, and these books tell you what you should be feeling. So because we've read the book, we sit down and we look for that feeling, and then we can actually con ourselves into thinking that we've got that feeling. It's like, yes, jhana! No jhana. We just fooled ourselves into thinking that we've got jhana. And so we just sit down quietly and we just persevere with this practice, as I say, expecting nothing, you know. And people are like, oh yeah, you know, you're supposed to see this light when you meditate. You know? And so they sit down and they see a light. They've made the light up. They have an expectation of a light, and they can summons the light up. And it's fascinating, this thing that people have, light, nimitta. Ajahn Chah always used to say his flashlight, his torch had light. He used to say to people, when you want light, do you want to borrow a flashlight, do you want a torch? Because all these people, they're chasing this light. You get these people say, you've got to get this light and it's going to be a bit mushy, and then you've got to make it nice and sharp, and then you've got to take it up here and then down here and get it down to your navel, and There's nothing in the suttas remotely like that. We are starting to develop things in our own mind when we start moving coloured discs around up and down our bodies. These are mind-made, and they're not real, they're illusions. It's a delusion that we're giving ourselves. If there's light, big deal, there's light. Come back to the breath. You want nimitta, you get a nimitta. You get nimitta when nimitta is ready. You get your nimitta when you attain the first jhana. Then you'll know. You'll have a sign all right when you attain the first jhana. But people are so busy thinking that they see these lights. And often you shut your eyes and you will see lights. Different coloured lights, different things flash up in your mind. These aren't nimittas. These are just mind-made images. Or sometimes, there is some light hitting the back of your eyelids and that's able to penetrate through, But it's not nimitta. And people are convinced that they're getting a nimitta, and then they try and concentrate on their nimitta. They chase after the nimitta, and then they disappoint themselves because it goes away. Or it changes colour. It's supposed to be white and it just went purple. Get very disappointed with themselves. Just keep coming back to the breath. That's what we're watching. We're watching the breath. And as I say, as you progress through your meditation practice, then you start to observe things like, is the breath a harsh breath? Is it a soft breath? We start to see all of these things. We examine it a little bit more. But when we're starting out, all we have to do is be aware of the breathing in and the breathing out. As I say, when the mind wanders, we just become aware eventually that it's wandered. Because as I say, it can take time, be out there for a long time before we realise that our mind's actually gone off. And we just bring it back to the breath. And we keep this practice up. As I said, eventually the mind will start to stay with the breath. It'll stay longer, we'll get it to go there faster. It won't wander quite so quickly. And then you'll find, as you get to that stage, the other things you'll naturally start to observe. What sort of breath it is. Is it a harsh breath? Is it a soft breath? You'll start to calm the breath down. And as the breath is calming down, the mind is calming down. As the mind is calming down, the body is calming down. It's a win-win situation. A calm mind gives us a calm body. And as I say, when we start the meditation practice off, we want to relax our bodies as well. Because a relaxed body helps to give us a calm mind. And a calm mind gives us a relaxed body. And when we have a relaxed body, our body's immune system is actually working better than when our body's not relaxed. When our body isn't relaxed, the immune system starts to play out. The immune system actually starts to close down. The more stressful we are, and when we're not relaxed, we're stressed. The more stressed we are, the more our immune system closes off. So if we can get rid of the stress, then our immune system starts to work properly. So not only do we have the calm mind, We have a healthy body. And so, just be aware, we do need to try and keep the precepts. That's one of the first things we have to have in our meditation practice. Morality is so important. Because as I said earlier, when we're not leading a moral lifestyle, that's just something else for our minds to remind us of. Something else for our minds to try and take us away from our meditation period. So the more morality we have, the easier it becomes for us to bring the mind under control. Don't try and force your meditation. Yeah, try and get that time. Try and find that place in the house that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day you can call your own. Turn off the mobile phone. You don't need it for 15 minutes. You can live without it, So find that quiet place and meditate. For people who have trouble meditating, there's other ways of meditating, When you get up in the morning, I know you ladies, you go straight to the mirror, brush my hair. So while you're brushing your hair, don't think about cooking breakfast. Just think about brushing your hair. That's being mindful of one thing. That's meditation. But we don't, we get up and, I don't brush my hair these days, but, we get up in the morning, you're just brushing your hair and you start thinking about, what am I going to have for breakfast? Wonder what it's going to be like at work today. You don't need to be thinking about these things. While you're brushing your hair, you can just be brushing your hair. And that is meditation. There's so many opportunities for us to meditate. But when we get on the bus to go to work, I don't know what it's like here, but where I come from, people don't want to talk to each other on the bus, especially not early in the morning. And too grumpy in the morning to want to talk to anybody. So they sit there pretending they're reading the newspaper or they pretend they're reading a book. So you can sit there and just be mindful of the breath. Nobody even knows that you're meditating. When we're at work, we can't do this vipassana that everybody gets taught. If you try and do vipassana at work, you're going to get fired. Because vipassana, they slow everything down, don't they? Like when you're walking, it's like lifting, placing. Well, if you're at work, say you're working on a computer, so you're like pressing the button, pressing the button, pressing the button. And by the way, if you press your button like that, you're just going to get one letter go right across the screen, And your boss is going to go and go, how's that letter going? And you've got 2 letters done because you've been mindful and you can't do it. But what you do is when your boss gives you a job to do, you do that one job. Unfortunately today, bosses like to give us more than one job at the same time, because they're a bit like that. But we need to concentrate on one job at a time. Do one job, get it finished, start the next job. This is how you get a job done well. You try and do 2 or 3 jobs at once, you can't do it. Well, you might be able to do it, but you don't do a good job of any of them. If you did one job at a time, you could do an excellent job of each one of the jobs. And we know this because, in the mornings we get up and we sit there, we make a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and we turn on the radio. Maybe you've got the newspaper in front of us. And then you reach out for your cup of tea, and it's empty. I don't remember drinking that. Of course not. You weren't mindful. You were trying to do 3 things at once. And you can't do 3 things at once. The mind can only take in one thing at a time. So, but if you had your cup of coffee or your cup of tea and you could sit there and you could you got your hands around it, so you're feeling the warmth of the coffee. You can smell the aroma of the coffee. Then you sit there and you take a sip of the coffee, you can feel the coffee coming over your teeth and over your tongue and down your throat. When you finish that cup of coffee, you'll know that you've had a cup of coffee. You'll have enjoyed that cup of coffee, you know. Then you can read your newspaper if you want to. But don't try and do all three things at once. Because I know you've all done it, gone and picked up that cup and it's empty, you know, because you haven't been mindful. And so you've not enjoyed the cup of coffee. If you could sit there and just be with that cup of coffee for 10 or 15 minutes, that'd be a really good cup of coffee. You'd really, really enjoy that cup of coffee, you know. This is mindfulness. You know, so it's not just about sitting and breathing. There are many ways that we can take this mindfulness off of the cushion and into the workplace. You know? And this is what's going to help us. You know, because when we can start to do that, because you can't sit at work going, you're going to get in trouble. You know? Somebody's going to complain. But you can be mindful of the job that you're doing. You can keep your mind just on this one thing and do a good job. You know? So that's about what we got time for. So I think you've got a schedule to keep. So is there any questions, any comments? A way to deal with emotions that arise. Yeah, well, what we can do is we can actually observe the emotion and try and see what caused it to come up. Where did it come from?
Certain day, something happened that day or whatever, whether it's a happy occasion or sad occasion.
Yeah.
During the sitting, it just will come into your mind.
Absolutely.
A story
Yes.
or something. Then it becomes so boiled up emotion, so strong emotion. I aware of it. So it's so strong that I thought I waste my time. So keep on feeling that kind of emotion.
You see, you're right. First and foremost, look, we don't suppress it. You know, suppressing it becomes quite dangerous, you know, when we suppress these emotions. So, as you say, something's happened during the day. Maybe it's a nice thing, maybe it's not a nice thing, you know. And so either happiness or anger or something arises within us. So the first thing we have to realize is that this incident is actually in the past. The incident has actually happened in the past, you know, it's over. You know. But we can actually turn around and start to examine, why is it making me happy or why is it making me unhappy? So we investigate the emotion that's arisen. We investigate what is it that caused the emotion to arise. You know? Now, if somebody's made you upset, for instance, then we go back to metta. You know? If somebody says something nasty to you, then that person's got a problem. You know? And so we realise, instead of thinking that person was really nasty to me, you know, which is getting us upset and emotional, we will think, oh wow, I wonder what went wrong with that person today. I wonder what happened. You know, I hope they're feeling better now. So we start to send metta, and so the anger starts to subside quite quickly, and we start to send metta. You know, because when people are nasty to us, it means they've got problems in their life. You know? And this is how they offload their problems, is they offload them onto other people. You know? And so when we can start to understand this, we send metta out to these people. And of course, other things like joyous occasions, you know, yeah, we like to remember the joyous occasions. We have to be very careful because we can cling to these joyful occasions. And of course, that joyous occasion was conditioned. Certain conditions had to come into play to make them a happy sensation, an enjoyable sensation. We have to realise that we don't always have these things come together. And so we're allowed to enjoy it while it was there, but then we have to get ready to let it go. So you can just turn around and go, yeah, that was nice, and then just let it go. So again, you've not suppressed it, you've acknowledged it, you've acknowledged that it was nice, and then you just let it go, Yeah, that was a good day today, brilliant. But we don't cling hoping for the same the next day, We just understand that due to certain conditions taking place, the boss couldn't be at work today because he had to be somewhere else. Hey, he had a wonderful day, no nagging, But of course we understand that the boss is not always going to be out of town. Sometimes the boss is going to be in the office, So we accept that, hey, today was great, but we have to let it go. We can't hold on to it. And as I say, that's not, then you're not clinging to anything, But see, memories, we're always going to have memories. They're hardwired into us. We just don't need to have the emotional baggage that goes with the memories. Because sometimes people make us angry, and we might not see somebody for 20 or 30 years, and the mere thought of that person can make us angry. Well, the memory of that person is going to be there. Well, what we need to do is ditch the anger that's associated with that person. So even after 20 years of thinking about that person makes you angry, send them metta. May they be happy. And then you'll find over time that the anger starts to subside. But again, it's not an overnight sensation. Things like sending metta out to those people who've hurt you. The memory of the hurt is always going to be there. But when we send metta, the emotional side of the hurt stops arising. So the memory will be there, but the emotional pain that you associate with that memory won't arise. So you've not suppressed anything. You've actually dealt with it.
If I keep bringing the attention to the breathing, is it suppressing?
No.
When the emotion arises, I keep come back to the breathing, and then it will come again to the breathing, or...
Yeah, but what happens, you see...
The thoughts will come again.
Yes, the thought will come again, and you come back to the breathing.
When the thought comes again,
Yeah.
we come back to attention.
See, suppression is when we deliberately try to force it out. That's a suppression, when we're forcefully trying to get rid of the emotion. But with the anapanasati, for instance, the object of meditation is your breath. So we're just watching the breath. So when this thought arises, we realise that our mind has wandered. It's no longer where we want it to be. So we just bring it back to the breath. So we're not suppressing the thought. It's not suppressing it at all. We're just coming away from the thought. It's like when you go somewhere and somebody wants to argue with you. If you walk away, you've not suppressed that person. You've not suppressed the argument. You've walked away from the argument. Yeah, you're walking away from it as opposed to confronting it, or suppressing it. And then we just come back. And then eventually you find that, as I say, over time, your mind has a tendency to stick more with the breath than with the thoughts. But we do start to get rid of. You see, this is why I said the Dharma is so important with meditation. Because with Dharma we understand that we suffer from greed, anger and delusion. And so when we're meditating, we're getting rid of greed, anger and delusion. So we see it arising and we don't react to it. So it's when we react that it starts to get a grasp on us. When we don't react, then there's no clinging to it. when we react, we're taking ownership of the emotion. So we see anger arises. But anger is just an emotion. You don't own anger. You don't own this emotion. But what happens is most of us, so anger arises and we go, I am angry. Now you've taken ownership of it. You've taken ownership of an emotion called anger. And then the grasping comes, the clinging comes, But when we realise that anger has arisen, then we can turn away from the anger. We're not taking ownership of it. And that's something that we have to stop doing, is taking ownership of things. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm just an angry person. I was like, what, all the time? They go, yeah, I'm always angry. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They go, well, don't be stupid. Well, how can you say I'm angry? You're obviously not angry all of the time. So why would you say that you're an angry person when obviously this isn't true? There are times when there is anger. There's times when there is happiness. These are just emotions. But we have a tendency to hold on to them. When we're holding on to them, we're taking ownership of them. We need to let them go. And so anger arises, we are aware that there's anger there, we let it go. And we come back to the breath. And then, as I say, that thought might come straight back again. It's okay, we come back to the breath. And eventually, your mind will stay with the breath longer, the thought will arise less and less. And then the memory may still be there, but the anger won't be anymore. You'll just know there was an incident once. Any other questions? Okay. Well, in that case, we'll just close off now. I shall let you go, because I think you're supposed to be somewhere else, aren't you? Self-practice. Alright, so we're going to leave it at that. And I'll get back to you at 4:30. Okay? So, enjoy your practice. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.